Hi guys, this week we're going to talk about should you be investing in this kind of projects. So if you're following me on Facebook or Instagram, then you know that I just recently came back from Hong Kong and I did share a few photos when I was there, right? So if you haven't following me on the social media, then you can follow me on Facebook and also the Instagram. Just click like and subscribe to my account, right? So speaking of the property in Hong Kong is that they have a lot of let me show you first on the photo. Let me see. Yeah, so if you can see, this is a photo, right? Now this is a photo where I captured it when I was in Hong Kong. Now you can see a lot of very high dense buildings, both new and old, right? With the hill at the back, and obviously if you see another photos, and obviously this is the sea. So this is the sea view, right? So they'll have, why they don't develop. I asked local why they don't take over the hill at the back, and why don't develop there, because I think they somehow they believe in all this feng shui thing, like Pui San Min Hoi, right? So you have a sea at the front and you will have the so-called the hill at the back. It seems like this is one of the best settings for prosperity, but it is indeed, well, but on the property side of it, you can see a lot of highly dense building being built like how many years ago, of the mixture like old and new, right? But then again, if you look into the all these building, even on the other side of the island, you will have very high dense buildings as well. Now it's not like they will build purposely just to get the most profit out of it, but then again, because to support the existing population in Hong Kong. Now Hong Kong is a very small island, and then very small land, and also they will have a lot of population moving in. Now the population could be people coming in from China, all over the world, maybe for business or maybe for work, and also the local people actually staying in Hong Kong as well. Then some of the Hong Kong people, they cannot afford to buy the property in the island or maybe in the Hong Kong as well. So they will have the alternative of moving out from Hong Kong. For example, the nearest city they can get, which is the Shenzhen. Now that takes about like an hour to the island of Hong Kong. Now today we're going to talk about, we are not going to talk about the property in Hong Kong, but instead we're going to discuss property in Malaysia. Now when I came back, I cannot stop noticing there's a lot of there's not a lot, but I have seen a project that to me is like really high dense in a one little small area. Now before I continue, I need to make a disclaimer. My disclaimer is that I'm not saying that this kind of project you cannot buy, right? In terms of if you're buying for own stay, by all means you can buy. Certainly there's no issue at all. Secondly, is that I'm not condemning the developer that developing this project. It's just that I'm just doing what I think from what I see for this particular project, right? So this is just my personal view. If you ask me whether I will be investing in this project, then I'll share with you later on, because if you talk about property when you buy for own stay, and also the location, everything is really very personal. But when it comes to property investment, we have to look into a lot of things. For example, like the population, the location, and etc. That's the bare minimum that we are looking at, the basics now. Right. So let me have show you what I noticed this. Let me see if I can bring up the browser. Right. So if you can see, this is actually an area called Bandar Sarjana Putra, right? Bandar Sarjana Putra is close to the airport. It's not very far. It's close to the airport, like maybe 10 to 20 minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes of that. But then you get this small area. What I noticed is that it has a huge of, when you I always notice, I never read never follow into this project, but I did a little bit search on this. The total project, this land itself is about 8 acres, approximately 8 acres, okay? And then it has 10 buildings, and at the same time it's just next to the toll. Now with this small area, you have 2,000 units. There's about 2,000 units in this small area, 8 acres of land. I'm not sure if you can see the street view. Right, this is a little bit old, but it should be, or it's already completed by now. All the old 10 blocks already completed, right? So the point is that what I'm trying to share with you guys is that I'm just telling you my own opinion in this kind of project, right? I'm not condemning it. And then if you're thinking to buy for own stay, by all means you can buy, right? But when it comes to investment, then I'm really not sure about this. I'll show you why I think this is just a case study where I would not be getting into this kind of project. Now, why? First thing first, if any of you that following me or haven't been to my my talk before, I always indicate besides the location is a must. The second thing I really need to look into is actually the population itself. Now, if you're going to invest in any kind of property, you need to make sure that you do enough groundwork, because by the end of the day, whether you are running a business or you're going to invest into property, you need people to come in to rent your property, right? So unless you have a lot of holding powers, then by all means you can buy for more than 1, 2, or maybe 10. Nobody cares about that. But then again, if you just especially for the people that really first timer to invest in property, try to avoid properties like this, because the project itself already 2,000 units. Now we haven't taken into the account of a surrounding area like this, right? How many people, if you walk the ground, if you're traveling in this area, how many property unit or link houses that actually fully occupied? Now you have to fix it here. Now if you talk about, you always think about when you invest in a property, the third one is that you're going to look into the location. The second one, you're going to look into the population in that area. The third one, you have to make sure that how many people and how many units available for the people to rent. Like if, for example, in this area, like I'm not sure how many units are here, but say for example, if they have like 2,000 units of the landed houses available, but then again you have like 30 to 40%, maybe 30% is vacant, or 15% of landed houses are vacant, then what makes you think that the tenants going to rent your place? It might be new for this service apartment, but then again some people, they might as well just rent the landed property, because the landed property it's much easier, it should be cheaper, and also the area, the size of the property is much bigger. Now for the owners, for people that renting out this landed property, they don't need to pay for the maintenance fee, and therefore they can reduce the rental as to compare with you if you were to invest in this project. Now you have maintenance fee to pay. Secondly, and then you have to check in this another property project here, I think it's by the same developer, whether the whole what's the occupancy for this property, right? This project Sky Park, what's the occupancy? What makes you think that the people, the tenants, going to rent here instead of here, or even worse, they're going to rent here, right? Not to mention is that across the road, you can literally invest in the other side of it. Now, so this is the kind of thing that people always ask me, should they invest in this kind of project? And sometimes people just bought into it but not doing their own due diligence. Now in today's, you already learned a few things. Besides location, then you need to look into the population, then you need to look into the occupancy, then also you need to look into the type of property available and what's the alternative. You also learn before you get into any kind of investment, who will be your target tenant is. So this kind of thing, all of these things will be when we do our own diligence, or before I invest into any kind of projects or any kind of property. These are the things, the bare minimum that I will look into it besides the number. I don't just simply look into the numbers itself. Now, for example, how much a property worth and how much a PSF. Yes, that kind of information is very important, but then again, when it comes to, we don't just look into the price. Cheap doesn't mean will give you the best return, as opposed to if you were to have to pay maybe 20 to 30% more of the price that you're buying here, but then again you will give you higher rental, then why not? Instead of having to buy the property that far away first thing, and then there's not enough people to support your unit and to rent your unit, and then therefore you have to pay like to have deficit more every month. So if you do the calculation, what's the odds of having you to pay to be a negative cash flow every month? So a lot of things has to take into consideration. And then again, today basically I just take one project as the case study, and how we look into the how we as an investor we look into investing a property. Now the other thing that maybe you guys can do is that analyze a little bit further, one step further, is look into the area itself. Sometimes you don't get the data, right? So our Department of Statistics seldom give you very updated information, but it's okay. But since whether you get the 2010 data or you get 2016 data, I think it's good enough, because the population trend won't be like to escalate like this. The trend won't be like this. It will be gradually increase, but is in this very moment it helps you to determine whether or not the probability of having to rent out your property, right? So I did a little bit quick search on the population in this area. Yeah, this area is actually called is actually in Selangor, and then it is Kuala Langat, and also this area is called Tanjung 12, right? Tanjung 12 is the density is 292 people per km, right? They have the population stats from the Department of Statistics of Malaysia. You can check it out in the website if you want, and you can subscribe to it. Why I think it's important is that you have 300. They ever since 2002 until 2010, they increased to about 100 thousand of population in this area. But then again, if you look into the population, the density per km is like 300 people. 300 people per km. I'm not sure how you guys look into this, but to me, this is an indication that there aren't enough population to support my property. What I mean by support is that people actually renting your property, right? So we're not just talk about property, landed property to rent, but we also look into the stratified building. What it means that stratified building is that you have like a layer of the imagine this way, you spread the people equally and then you stack it up. So this small plot of land, 8 acres of land, that can stack so many people on the top. So assuming people that they can, all the people can they increase the density, so the people can stay layer by layer like this. But then again, if you look into the stats, it's like 300 people per kilometer square kilometer. So I'm very logic how I look into this, how on earth that the population enough to support this, right? So then again, for people to buy own stay, by all means you can invest into this, because I think if you're working in the KLIA or if you work around this area, I think it's not bad. The pricing's affordable, though I think is affordable level, but I don't think the PSF is a little bit is on the low side. All right. But then again, if you ask me, should we invest in the to invest in this project as an investment property, then I would say no, right? Because of the things that I mentioned, that what's the odds of you buy the property and then you can rent it out. So these are the thing that I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure about this property, right? There's another property near the other side of I think it's but I don't want to mention that project. Similar, something like this. They have the 6 to 8 blocks, and then again, if you look into the population, it just, to me, it doesn't make sense, right? I would not invest in the this kind of project, though it's affordable, but it's just that the odds are very, very low. Yeah. So this kind of I hope you guys learn something from here. This is the I just do a really quick into the projects, where sometimes I'll just spot one project and then I'll put a little bit of view into it. But I cannot stop, because I just came back from Hong Kong. I cannot stop to look into this. It's like a mini Hong Kong kind of thing, which is not acceptable, especially if you look into the land. Look into the land. Look into the land. Can you see? Can you see the kind of land? How much land they do have? And then you don't need a high rise for now. The reason why you build high rise is because to support the population that ever growing. This is a situation in Hong Kong where there's no more land. They have to demolish existing old property to develop a new building to increase the density. But if you look into this small place, it doesn't make sense, right? As opposed, now I'm going to talk into this, as opposed to KL. Now if you look into the KL, it's really high dense. If you talk about really no land, even if they have land, it will be those land that is either park or reserve. So this cannot be compromised. I really say those reserve or forest reserve, it shouldn't be built for residential use or any kind of development. I really oppose that, because there's really no more greens in the city, right? So if you talk about to build a high rise or high density project, in the city itself, it makes sense because there's no more lands to build. However, if you talk about in that place, Tanjung 12 in the Kuala Langat, I'm not sure. They should build landed instead of high rise, right? They don't need such kind of product now in that place. So yeah, I hope you guys learned something from this. Next week I'll share with you more. All right. If you haven't followed me on Facebook and Instagram, again, you can follow this and go into the click like and follow. If you're looking for properties, you can get the below market value properties. You can always go to ric.com.my, and from there you can get a lot of learning and also below market value properties for just 90 cents. All right, until then, see you guys.